What would you do if you came face to face with something you couldn't explain? On Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories, every episode features a real person sharing their true encounter with the supernatural moments that changed how they see the world forever. These aren't fictional stories or dramatizations, just first-hand accounts of what people have seen, heard, and experienced in the unknown. Some are unsettling, some are emotional, and some will stay with you forever. Search Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories wherever you listen to podcasts and start a paranormal journey like never before.
I'm Annie from Boston, Massachusetts.
And I'm Johanna from Vienna, Austria. We are the hosts of Fresh Hell, your international podcast that covers murder, mystery, and the macabre throughout history. Are you interested in the 3,569 ways your household could have killed you in the Victorian era?
Do you know how malaria and syphilis played a role in the John List family murders?
And have you ever wondered what Prince Albert's sex chair had to do with the murder of Stanford White? Okay, nothing. It had nothing to do with it. We're still telling you about it, though.
It's a pretty great sex chair. If you're looking for another show that talks about Ted Bundy, this is probably not the podcast for you. But if you're looking for two women that cover lesser-known cases from all over the world with a lot of background information.
So much background information that you will rock your local pub quiz from now on.
Then find Fresh Hell Podcast on your favorite podcast app.
We also have German cannibals.
See you soon.
Tschüss.
Welcome back to Supernatural Japan, the podcast where we explore the eerie, the unexplained, and the deeply haunted corners of Japan. I'm your host, Kevin O'Shea. Tonight, we're heading into the neon-lit heart of Tokyo, a place alive with energy, packed with shopping malls, anime culture, and towering skyscrapers. But beneath the bright lights, something much darker lingers. Rising high above the district of Ikebukuro is Sunshine 60, a gleaming symbol of Japan's post-war economic boom. Offices buzz, elevators race skywards, and tourists take in breathtaking views from the observation deck. But what many visitors don't realize is that this towering structure stands on ground soaked in history, and some believe unrest. Because before Sunshine 60 ever touched the sky, this land was home to one of Japan's most infamous prisons. And some say the past has never left. If you're a long-time listener to the show, you'll remember we did an episode on this spooky building in the early days of the podcast. I wanted to revisit the topic and add more details. Obviously, in recent news, a tragic crime happened at the Pokemon Center in Ikebukuro Sunshine 60, and that brought up a conversation online. Now, this evening we have a real treat. We'll talk to Riki Ohkanda, a Tokyo-based content creator who really knows a lot about the city's spookier side. And she's going to talk to us about the Sunshine 60 building and her very own haunted encounter in that building many years ago. Ikebukuro is one of Tokyo's busiest urban hubs, a district that never seems to slow down. Centered around Ikebukuro Station, one of the busiest train stations in the world, the area pulses with life at all hours. Department stores, arcades, themed cafe, and anime culture line the streets. Now, just east of the station sits the sprawling Sunshine City complex, a self-contained city within a city, filled with shops, restaurants, an aquarium, and entertainment spaces. But Ikebukuro has always had a slightly different edge compared to other places like Shinjuku and Shibuya. It's less polished, it's a little grittier, a place where the past feels closer to the surface. And nowhere is that contrast more striking than at Sunshine 60 itself, a place where cheerful modernity rises directly from a deeply unsettling history. Completed in 1978, Sunshine 60 was once the tallest building in Asia, standing at nearly 240 meters tall. It symbolized Japan's rapid economic recovery and ambition. A futuristic skyscraper built for business, entertainment, and tourism. But its foundations tell a very different story. The tower was constructed on the former site of Sugamo Prison, a facility that once held political prisoners, wartime detainees, and after World War II, convicted Class A war criminals. In 1948, several high-ranking figures, including former Prime Minister Hideki Tojo, were executed there. The prison was dismantled in 1971, and a few years later, construction began on a project designed to symbolize brightness, renewal, and, perhaps, to overwrite the darkness that came before. Even the name, Sunshine, feels more deliberate, as if to push back against something lingering beneath the surface. It didn't take long after the building opened for the stories to begin. Employees and security guards reported shadowy figures moving through the hallways, sometimes appearing on surveillance cameras only to vanish moments later. Elevators have been said to stop on empty floors, doors lock or open on their own, and objects are moved or disappear entirely. In basement levels, closest to where the prison stood, people have described sudden cold spots and overwhelming sense of unease. And some even report strange odors with no visible source. Now, there are darker stories too. Accounts of unseen hands pushing or striking workers, of presences that feel not just lost but angry. Many believe these are the lingering spirits of former prisoners, men who suffered, died, and were executed on this very ground, trapped, perhaps, between history and a modern world. Attempts have reportedly been made to cleanse the building through religious rituals, but the stories persist. And today, Sunshine 60 stands as both a symbol of Tokyo's future and a reminder that the past sometimes refuses to stay buried. Now, everyone, to see photos of the Sunshine 60 building, Sugamo Prison, and all the things we're going to be talking about in this episode of the show, please make sure to follow us on Instagram at Supernatural Japan. And now, it's time to have that conversation with Riki.
You can know the whole, the Golden Gai area is haunted as heck. So if you don't know about that, and you know the history of the Golden Gai, that area, right?
Just a little bit. I know it's infested with tourists now, but
it is. It was nice up until about 20, maybe 50, let's say 15 years ago.
Okay.
But the Golden Gai area over there, it was just a post-war shanty place where everyone would get because the whole area was burned out over there around Shinjuku, right?
Yeah.
And kind of a black market. The whole area was became a black market. And that's where you'd go to drink. And as you know, you had Kabukicho over there, which was full of, Yakuza. Right?
Yeah.
The down and out people of life would set up shop over there and entertain guests, sometimes with singing and cabaret and that sort of thing. Lots of jokesters and things like that. Happened a lot in Akasaka area as well, too.
Yeah.
That was Yoshiwara, right? Or Asakusa. That's right. Asakusa was Yoshiwara.
Yeah.
And as you know, the same sort of thing happened in Shinjuku. And if you go to, at least until 15 years ago, if you would go to that area, the kind of people you would find who would be the proprietors of these various dive bars or shanty shacks were people who were at one time, they were one-hit wonders.
Oh, okay.
So, yep. They had one little single that popped up on the top 100 at number 99 or something like that. Or they were on a TV show once and they kind of vaguely made it into the newspaper at some point. And they were going to make their big comeback any day now, but it's been 40, 50 years since then. Right?
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of like the dump of Hollywood in Japan. In other words, anyone who made it slightly and was really thinking about becoming a D-lister and never was able to pull themselves out of that. Well, it's kind of connected to today's story in a sense. The Ikebukuro area. You've got in Japan, you've got two types of locations. One is the in and one is the yo.
Okay.
And the yo is the happy, light-filled, positive locations.
Okay.
Now, Kichijoji is one of those, right?
Okay.
But if you go just one station over to Mitaka, that becomes in. And in is the dark space.
Okay.
Something happened there. It has a sad memory. Something happened. And so it's hard to tell, but you'll hear a lot of stories that come, for example, from the Mitaka area about suicides and about bombings. So, for example, World War II, we had a whole bunch of bombings in the whole Mitaka area and everything like that.
Okay.
And that's why you have in, where Kichijoji, which had none of that. And then, I'm sorry, the yo, whereas Kichijoji, which had none of that. And then the in is just the darkness, and it still the collective memory of the space becomes heavy and thick. Well, Ikebukuro is all that way, as you might know. That whole area over there, which is towards between Ikebukuro and Itabashi, has a lot of. It's very, very in. So you would start over there in the Itabashi area where they used to have the execution grounds. And they would put people's heads on spikes over there and all sorts of crazy things. If you heard that Edo period kind of, and before that, that's where they would do a lot of the torturous methods of execution were all done there.
Okay.
So one of the Daisan anyway. And afterwards, that area, of course, as you know, became Sugamo. Not just that area, but if you go a little bit further away from that, in attempts to distance themselves from the darkness that they left behind with the inn, they created a Sugamo prison. That was the Sugamo Keibusho was a Meiji period thing. So it wasn't a World War II thing per se. It became Sugamo prison.
So it was originally built in the Meiji period, so in the 1800s.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes. And at that time, it was mostly just political prisoners and something like that. You know, it wasn't particularly a scary place per se, but World War II happened, and then you have it was taken over by GHQ, and it was named from Sugamo Keimusho to Sugamo prison.
Okay,
in katakana and everything. So as you may know, between 2,000 and 5,000 prisoners went through there, and out of those people, it was about 60 people which were executed in that area. But as you've probably mentioned on your podcast before, they have different kinds of yude, different kind of spirits, right? You have usual jibakude, right? Which is the one who is haunting a location because something happened there.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, you have the onryo, right? So the jibakude are the ones that you're going to find over in Sugamo prison, or what the grounds of what used to be.
I guess that's the modern kind of term in paranormal lore in English would be the stone tape theory, right? So it's like that bad things that happen in that spot sticking to that spot. And I know the Japanese, obviously so insanely superstitious, right? As the more and more I learn as I create this podcast, and obviously from hearing you talk there, and also from what I've read too and done in the research over different episodes of the podcast is that a lot of Japanese believe that bad mojo, so to speak, doesn't necessarily have to be connected with a specific building that was there. That you knock that building down and cart that stuff away and build a new building. It's the site, it's that place, that location can have that bad juju, I suppose, would be in a non-Japanese term.
Well, if you want to tie it into sort of the spirituality of the country, you've got the Buddhism versus the Shinto. And while it is arguably intertwined in a lot of spaces, Buddhism it tends to be more of the way of once you're dead, you got that period of 49 days, and then you go off and you get reincarnated, right? Well, not in Shinto. In Shinto, that's why they want all that sort of kegare, all of the bad stuff, the bad juju, far away from the city. That's why they put it out there in Itabashi at the time, then eventually in Ikebukuro at the time, because it wasn't part of the city. It was just outside of the city. Okay. So kegare never goes away. And that's part of Shinto. So Shinto's really obsessed with cleanliness and constantly purifying.
Yeah.
all the whole what do you call it? The whole year through, there'll be dozens of festivals, and they're all about purification and cleaning and getting rid of old things that possibly
Yeah,
have
yeah,
some
yeah.
sort of kick at it. But as a result of that, you'll have the Jibaku Day. So once something is there, that land is cursed, essentially. So
Mm,
it's not a spirit that's there so much as a memory of something awful that happened. The in is still there. And it's never going to go
mm.
away.
Okay, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. And folks, by the way, the reason why we're having this conversation right now, and there's gonna be a bit of stuff that you'll have heard before we started here, but this conversation, unfortunately, a very dark thing happened last week in the news in Japan, which kind of I saw kind of led to a conversation on X. There was unfortunately that murder suicide that happened at the Pokemon Center in Ikebukuro in the Sunshine 60 building. And that kind of led to this conversation. I saw the kind of a thread. There was Cole talking about experiences he's had. I'm not sure if you're listening, Cole, but and you had mentioned your experience, and I said, oh my gosh, Riki, I need to get you on the podcast and talk about this because that's one thing. I would love to do more of. And for you guys out there listening, contact me if you've had experiences. But I've got a few other people I've got lined up to come on soon and talk about other experiences in Japan. But I want to talk to people who've experienced things. As much as I am passionate about folkloric research and learning about, the kind of paranormal traditions and experiences, I have to admit, I have not had an experience in Japan or... Now I really maybe I had a few in Canada when I was younger, but really, no, I haven't. I want to in a way, or maybe I don't want to. Maybe I shouldn't, I'd be regretting that if it happened, but it's a topic I'm interested. So, the Sunshine 60 building, is to be honest, when you do a Google search, which a lot of people do, for haunted places in Japan. And I know more and more people are interested in coming to Japan there's the kind of dark tourism, right? People are interested in going to these spots all around the world. It's growing. Just this whole paranormal podcast genre is just getting bigger and bigger, especially during the COVID years. And it continues to grow. But you always see the Sunshine 60 building is one of the top ones. And that's kind of why I initially did an episode about it. But you've yourself, what are you said you've had your own experiences, but I'm wondering, and kind of day-to-day life, first of all, how often do you come across the Sunshine 60 building? Is it a place you walk through, a place you go to? I know Cole, who we were having who was having part of that thread on X, was saying that as part of his daily commute, he walks through that building or past that building, I think he said, right? So let's tell me about your experiences with the building.
Get dressed with me to head to yoga and then grab lunch. So I'm going for a more chill vibe today, since I just got these new drapey yoga joggers from Lululemon. The looser fit is such a nice change from the tights I usually wear. They just flow when I'm moving through poses. I'll probably keep these on after class and switch my top for something less sporty. Anyway, can't be late, so that's it for today. Bye, y'all! Shop the new Rulu drapey yoga joggers at lululemon.com.
Looking for a hauntingly unique podcast this spooky season? Listen to I Talk to Ghosts for chilling ghost stories, genuine in-studio medium readings, and a virtual seance table where the spirits have an opportunity to speak directly to you. Find I Talk to Ghosts on all the fine podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Happy haunting.
Well, let me say that one thing is, well, see, I've been able to. It's just to sound really weird, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I was one of the nieces of my auntie who was also essentially, she could see those things, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I was the niece who could also see those things.
Okay. Yeah.
So it wasn't entirely uncommon for me to experience oogly booglies since I was a kid. And I've seen them 3 times since I came to Japan. And but it was only when I was still young. So I only was able to see them until maybe 30 to early 30s, 31, 32, something like that.
So just a couple of years ago, and now you can't.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so this was in my early 20s.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
then and now as well, I don't really have any connection to Ikebukuro because I've always been in the Mitaka Kichijoji area.
Okay, you're pretty far away, right?
Oh yes, there's no reason to go to Ikebukuro.
Yeah.
And also my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time. My husband he always so warned me about not going to Ikebukuro because it's very, very in, as we've mentioned before, it's a dark place. And it's it's a cursed land from his perspective. And he's a Tokyoite. He's a fifth generation Edoko. Okay. So he's through and through Tokyo kid, and you do not go to Ikebukuro if you're from Tokyo, he says. Anyway, all that aside, I work in film and theater.
Okay.
And at the top of Sunshine City, I'm not entirely sure if the building's been renovated or not since then, because when I saw it, it was something 20 years ago, maybe about 20 years ago, when I was still in my mid-20s. They have a theater up there on top of Sunshine City for theatrical arts. Okay. So not just movies, but for actual plays and performances like that. And I was working with, I think the company was Parco at the time. Okay. It's a stage production company. And what you would do is before, during, and after, of course, performances, you'd enter through the back way. Okay. And you bring in your props, you bring in your art and anything, the costumes that they would need, and you just go in through the staff entrance, which at the time was, I think it was on either the first floor or the B1. I think you had to go down a flight of stairs to get to it. You went down the long hallway, and then you'd get the staff elevator at the end of the hallway, and then just go up to the top again. And I think it was somewhere at the top. The actual theater was somewhere at the top. And what happened then was simply that it was after some sort of an either meeting. I don't think it was after a show, but it was after a meeting, or I just dropped off some props, and it was rather late. I know it was dark. And I come down the elevator, and I'm walking down the long hall. There's nobody there. And the light it's the emergency light. It's the red light, right? Yeah. It's not blinking or flashing or anything. It's just red. Yeah. And it's not necessarily unusual for it to be red because it's after hours and the shop and everything's closed. And I'm walking down there, and there it's just, he's standing there at the end of the hall. And it's, you can't look directly at it. It's in your peripheral vision. Okay. So it's like as if you hold your hand up to your left, you can just see your hand, and you stop. If you move your hand from the back to the front, you can stop at the point at which you know that your hand is there and you can see it. But if you were to look over to your right, then also it would follow you with peripheral vision. So it'd still be off to the side. Okay. Focus on that which you're seeing. And it was a man. I'm assuming he's a middle-aged man, between 20, 30, something like that. Okay. And he was obviously in a military uniform, the brown and red. I could not see his face because there was no face to see, but it was all shrouded in darkness from the eyes up around to the nose. You could make out the lips. It was a very white face, and he was just standing at attention. He did nothing. He didn't say anything to me. He didn't speak to me, didn't approach me or any way. He was just there. And I knew what it was because I'd seen those things since I was young. And you don't really want to interact with them. No, yeah. You don't know what's going to happen. And if they like you, they might follow you. But I'm assuming after all these years, and now that I know what it is, it's probably one of those jibakure, which is stuck in the location that he's in. But I got out of there too sweet.
That's one of the things that I've read about, that people who have reported seeing, things at the Sunshine 60 building, it's often what they say kind of looks like someone in a military uniform. Maybe a guard or someone who had been a prisoner. But again, I mean, it was a military prison, especially. It was a military prison. And I know that post World War II, a lot of people were executed there, especially, I mean, there was even the Prime Minister of Japan during World War II, Togo, I believe. I mean, he was executed on that site. So, sometimes one of the things they talk about, right, is that with hauntings, sometimes people are just stuck.
Yeah. I think what's a little bit reassuring in a way is the Shinto thought. The thought that it might just be a kegare, it might just be something which is it has been dirtied, but it's not actually the soul of anybody who's there, right? So he's not stuck, but the memory is stuck.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that way. I hope
Yeah.
he's moved on to whatever world he's in the next world, because that would be a very unfortunate thing to
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Hopefully it is just something like that memory. Wow, that's amazing. And
Mm.
I'm curious,
Mm.
did that scare the heck out of you?
Um,
Or just
it
like an
was,
really uncomfortable feeling? You kind of figure like, I think I know what this is, and ooh.
well, I knew what it was because,
Yeah, okay.
as I mentioned before, I mean, I already knew exactly what it was because I've seen it a couple times. And so I was quite familiar with what it was. But it was very uncomfortable because it was very negative, right?
Mm,
So, I mean, I'd seen other ones, two others at least in Japan. And one of them that used to visit me every year in April. Actually, it would be next year. But at my old place where I used to live before I moved here,
okay.
mid-April, this young lady would appear, and she would just be there. I'd be in the living room, and she'd just appear sitting on the sofa next to me, and she would tell me how nice my clothes were.
Oh, wow.
She would always say, "Oh, that's such a beautiful kimono. 本当にこのkimonoは綺麗ですね." A young lady, and she was very pretty, and she was lovely, and that's all she would say, 綺麗ですね. And then she'd be gone.
Wow.
So that was never an in. That was never a negative
Yeah.
experience. She was every April for 10 years. She popped up on my sofa.
Wow. That's
Wonderful.
fascinating. So, with Ikebukuro, you've already mentioned, like, your husband had said, don't go to that area. There's a lot of, darkness to it. So, have you met, like, are there Japanese people, non-Japanese people, in Tokyo who've had similar experiences over the years in that area or anywhere else?
Well, I know my husband's quite attuned to it.
Oh, okay.
So if an area is Inoyo, he can feel that too. But it's something that people do talk about, and especially in drinking parties.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Staff. I remember the third guy. I'll tell you the other creepy I found. But there's a studio over at Inada Zitsumi, which is a station just outside of. Let's see, which line is that? I don't think it's the KO line. I think, but there's a studio over there called Ikuta Studio,
Okay.
and where they film a lot of the television dramas. So they have a lot of sets there, for example, and empty spaces. And above the set, you have what's called a sub. I think I don't know if in English it's called heaven or something like that. But it's above the set, and the director and the editor, the key staff, they are up inside of the sub, and then you have the set beneath it. And so they're yelling out directions from speakerphones. So it's like the voice from heaven, right? We like to joke about that as. But as a young staff, when I was a kiddo, I was a runner. And so I'd be there at early hours or late hours, 4 a.m, 5 a.m, getting things prepared for everyone to come in. And I went to the sub that one morning, and I saw a man of maybe about 20 years old, and he had a baseball cap pulled down quite low over his head, and he was standing there very creepy like, and he looked at me and he said the words Apollo cap.
Okay.
Apollo cap. I had no idea what it was, and that one freaked me out. So I went, "Wah!" I'm running out of the room like this, and I bumped into, I don't know, maybe it was production or something like that. I bumped into somebody, and I said, "There's a thingy in there," and the guy just rolled his eyes. He says, "Oh, you saw the Apollo cap guy?" I'm like, "What?" And so after, of course, he told someone else because I told someone else, and everyone told everyone.
Yeah.
And during lunchtime or something, it was well known that Ricky'd seen the Apollo Gap guy, and to the detriment of my industry, I'll just tell you the honest truth is that especially during the 1980s and 90s, it was very hard to be an AD, and it was very easy to be overworked. And there have been a few incidents where someone has been overworked to to his demise.
Okay. Yeah.
There was a sad situation where one of these assistant directors. He was in the hot tub over at Ikuta Studio sometime during the 90s, and he hadn't slept for a very long time, and he fell asleep, and that was the end of him.
Drown in the hot tub. Oh.
Yeah, either that or he had some sort of a medical issue
or something happened. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh man. And so, but I mean, it was no surprise to people. Like, oh, you saw him. Matter of factly, we all saw him.
Yeah, it's the guy, so everyone knows. So those sorts of incidents, I mean, enough people have seen it or experienced it, so whereas it doesn't become unbelievable.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Wow, that's
Like
very
you said,
fascinating.
Japan's superstitious, and they really are.
Yeah, they really are, aren't they? That's something I constantly learn and surprises me. Just like in my own house with my own wife, things she'll say, and I've talked about this with interviews with different people, and it's been fascinating, especially my time when I was living in Malaysia on Penang Island. People there are very superstitious too, especially like the local Chinese population, the overseas Chinese community. They're super superstitious, and it's a lot of very similar things, similar festivals to Japan, similar beliefs. And I had some friends who were Chinese, ethnic Chinese from Penang Island, and I mean, like the place where I lived was basically the area of the island is like haunted as crap, like super crazy stuff had gone on, like a lot of connected with a lot of war atrocities from the Japanese occupation in that area, and then other things too. There was just like a road near my place which was infamous for lots of accidents and lots of people passing away in road accidents. So, and a lot of tales and things. And it was a kind of thing where, maybe because I would inquire, I'd be like, people just don't come up to you and just start talking about that kind of thing. But if I walk up to a coworker, I'm like, hey, I got a question, blah, blah, blah. And I ask, like, do you guys believe in ghosts or this? Oh, Kevin, blah, blah. And they were more than happy to tell me all kinds of wild stories. It was like, oh, okay. But that is a fascinating thing, and which is why I have a podcast about it, But Riki, I don't want to keep you much longer. That was really fascinating. I love how our interview just began too, very organically. That was great. But thank you for coming on and sharing this. That's really fascinating, and Tokyo so well, which is great. And you've been embedded in the culture and population for enough of a time. And I think because of the fact that you, especially like during my years in Japan, I was kind of living in the expat world. Well, I mean, not really, actually, kind of like a toe in each, or a foot in each. Sometimes, working with expats only, but when I'd be done work, I was just in a Japanese kind of only community. But you're working with Japanese people every day, and you're in an industry working with Japanese people, so you're hearing that perspective. Where I think sometimes a lot of expats who live in Tokyo or whatnot might not have the opportunity to. And I guess maybe also, like you said, the industry you work in, there's a lot of people probably.
I have to say though.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say though that it's just the same culture with a different language. I mean, this is all universal. So here we are talking about Japanese ghosts because the Japanese also talk about Japanese ghosts.
Yeah.
They like these kind of stories, and that's why they'll remember them. So I think the whole world has this kind of thread.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the one thing. I mean, like I was mentioning to you before we started recording, I've been recently a guest on another paranormal podcast based out of the UK, and I listen to a lot. I mean, these are common threads throughout societies around the world, and there's a lot of common beliefs, and a lot of people, they have different terminology for it, but there's, even with all these different religions, the different cultures, there are so many similar threads, which I think makes a lot of this a lot more credible. Because why do so many people from so many different cultures who've never met, never been connected, especially in the past when a lot of these stories are coming from hundreds of years ago or more, why there's so many similar threads? I think there's something there. Yeah, whatever that is, I don't know, but yeah. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Supernatural Japan. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to follow the podcast wherever you find your podcasts. And I would really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and of course, leave a comment or an amazing review. That helps other spooky history lovers just like you find the show as well. Now you can visit supernaturaljapan.com to see all of our social links, our blog, and to learn all about the podcast. Now, also remember, there are ad-free and early episodes of Supernatural Japan, and they're available over on Patreon. There's also exclusive content like the Japan Ghost Stories podcast over there, and a lot of video content from our podcast. Now, you can become an obake, a daruma, or an awesome oni. Those are the levels, and enjoy loads of Japanese spooky extras, and the info is all at supernaturaljapan.com. Now, I wanted to read a new comment on Spotify, and this one comes from Vin's Literus, and he said, "The most dangerous monsters are the ones who promise love." I love that. And that is something that I said in the episode Love, Lies, and Death, Japan's Black Widows, and that's so true. I always say humans are far more terrifying than any ghost, cryptid, or poltergeist. So Vin's Literus, thank you so much for leaving that comment over on Spotify. And we have a new comment or a new review over on Apple Podcasts. So a 5-star review from AGNCNNV. And they wrote, listening to this in Japan on my vacation really hits different. I'm spooked. Well, thank you so much, AGNCNNV. I appreciate the comment and the rating. And yeah, that's definitely the case. Now, when you listen to a podcast about a haunted location and then you actually go to the location, whoa. It's heavy. Now, Brandon Schexnader, who is the host of Southern Gothic, the Southern Gothic podcast, we did an episode together a few months back, and he said this as well, that it's always much deeper, it gives a much deeper impact when you actually visit the location that you've been researching. So that haunted location, when you're in such close proximity, it really brings things home a lot more. Now, folks, if you leave a comment on Spotify or a review on Apple Podcasts, I will read it right here in the episode. So please do that. That's your homework, Supernatural Japan listeners. Now, of course, that's it for this episode. And I really want to, again, thank Riki Ohkanda for coming on the podcast. She is a super knowledgeable guest. You can find her on X and Instagram under the handle Paprika Girl, and the links will be in the show notes. That's it, everyone. Remember, when you are walking through empty and dark corridors at night and you feel someone might be quietly watching you from behind, be confident and keep moving. It might just be a ghost from the past.